Okay, so again, everyone, I want to welcome you to our webinar today. This is the third in our series for job development, building skills to connect with the business community. And this is session 3, developing and maintaining relationships with employers. Next slide, please. This webinar is sponsored by the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, or MHTTC, and we're housed at Rutgers in the School of Health Professions in the Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions. My name is Gati. I'm the project coordinator of this center, and I'll be hosting this webinar today. The MHTTC is funded by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, to enhance the capacity of the behavioral health and other related workforces, to deliver evidence-based and empirically supported practices to individuals with mental illnesses. Please visit the MHTTC Network website for additional information at mhttcnetwork.org. And if you're interested in staying up to date with the events and products the Northeast and Caribbean MHTTC is providing, we ask that you please sign up to receive our email communications, and you can do so by using the bit.ly link that you see on the screen, and I'll share it in the chat box. Next slide, please. Following this webinar, you'll be asked to complete a brief survey. We value this feedback and use it to improve our activities and inform future activities. So these surveys are important because our continued funding is linked to them. So we thank you in advance for your feedback. As I mentioned before, this webinar will be recorded and posted on our website. The only portion that will not be recorded is any breakout sessions that we have during the webinar. Slide. This presentation was prepared for the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center under a cooperative agreement from the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, known as SAMHSA. All material appearing in this presentation, except that taken directly from copyrighted sources, is in the public domain and may be reproduced or copied without permission from SAMHSA or the authors. Citation of the source is appreciated. We ask that you not distribute this presentation for a fee without specific written authorization from the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. At the time of this presentation, we can continue going on. It's okay, Jenny. So again, just a reminder, during this webinar, you can share your comments or questions in the chat box. Just know that your question will be visible to all participants. Throughout the webinar, our presenter may ask questions, and your participation, you can either unmute your mic. Everyone has the capacity to unmute their mic if you wish to comment. Or you can also use the chat function. Slide, please. The MHTTC network uses affirming, respectful, and recovery-oriented language in all activities. And this is language that is strength-based and hopeful, inclusive and accepting of diverse cultures, genders, perspectives, and experiences, healing-centered and trauma-responsive, invites individuals to participate in their own journeys, language that is person-first and free of labels, non-judgmental and avoids assumptions, and respectful, clear, and understandable, and consistent with our actions, policies, and products. So now let's begin our webinar. We have Joni Dolce with us today. Joni is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions at Rutgers in the School of Health Professions. She has several years of experience working in behavioral healthcare settings, namely supported employment. And Joni teaches courses in the department's undergraduate program, as well as provides training and technical assistance to behavioral healthcare providers. Her research interests include staff training and employment services, and she presents nationally on the topic of employment services and is listed as the Society of Human Resource Management recommended speaker on the topic of creating workplaces that support mental health. So again, welcome everyone, and I'll turn it over to Joni.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is our third training in our series of 3. Again, you didn't need to attend the first 2. The first one focused on approaching employers and how to create your introduction, or we refer to it as an elevator speech or elevator pitch. The second one was really focused on marketing and developing a marketing plan. Both of those are uploaded on our MHTTC website if you wanted to refer back to those. The materials as well as the recordings are on the website. Today, we're going to focus on looking at the benefits of building and maintaining relationships with employers. So we know as employment specialists, vocational specialists, getting out there and networking and developing those relationships with the business community is one strategy, a very effective strategy to conduct your job development and improve your job development efforts. We're also going to look at how we can develop and maintain relationships, as well as some activities to apply some of those strategies. I'm going to turn my camera off for some portion. I have some hustle and bustle going on here at home, so I will turn it on periodically, but I want to get us started. And if you want to introduce yourselves over the chat, feel free to do that. We will get started. And I'm going to be going back and forth, showing you some websites that are particularly relevant and helpful for this particular topic. So you'll be kind of going back and forth to some websites. We're going to have some opportunities to interact with one another. So we'll get started. So just a recap of job development. So job development is part of the employment services. The individual placement and support model identifies job development as a critical component and a principle of services providing support. So there are many definitions of job development, and one is really initiating and maintaining those ongoing relationships with businesses and other industry representatives. So in addition to us supporting and assisting job seekers in finding out what's important to them, identifying their goals, values, and interests, we're also out there in the business community maintaining and developing those relationships with a variety of businesses. And as you all may know, if you're doing job development right now, it's labor intensive. It takes time. There have been some studies that kind of suggest how much time it takes and how many contacts. Bob Gerby is in our psych rehab field and does a lot of work around job development and has studied it and found that out of 42 contacts per job offer, 6 contacts per interview, and 7 interviews per job offer. So it really is a very time-intensive activity, but it could be very rewarding. So these 3 workshops are intended to give you some of those more applied and tangible ways to get out there and accomplish those very time-intensive and labor-intensive job development tasks. And one of the key areas of really helping with your job development efforts is identifying goals, setting goals for yourself each week, how many employers you want to reach out to, how many employers you'd like to follow up with, and so on. So what are the benefits? You can use the chat now to identify what those benefits are to job development, or building relationships with employers. Use your chat box, unmute your mic, you can raise your hand, Kadi will unmute your mic, or you can unmute it, but what are the benefits to building relationships with employers? As opposed to kind of just sending job seekers on interviews, which are certainly part of our role as vocational and employment specialists, but when we're thinking about building relationships and developing relationships, what do you think some of those key benefits might look like? Looks like we have some. Okay. Gain their trust, absolutely. So you're gaining the trust of employers, Gardenia, increased opportunity for your clients to be considered. Yes, you're developing that trusting relationship. Teresa's emphasizing more likely to get people hired. Crystal, the Mental Health Association identified keeping our participants employed. So not only is it an opportunity to build trust and continue to facilitate those trusting relationships, but also in terms of retention, very helpful to build those relationships so that when difficulties or problems may arise, you can be there to support individuals. So we're going to talk about these 6 areas of building your employer network. So we're going to talk about going local and what that means, looking the part, being active, your research, and knowing, what resources are out there. And I'll show you some tools and websites to do some research about the labor market and some trends and projections, knowing your job seekers' goals. So kind of seems odd that that's part of building your employer network, but you'll find that knowing intimately what the job seekers that you're working with are seeking, what goals they have, really helps you to sort of zero in on those contacts. And then we'll talk about social media and using social media in your job development efforts and building that employer network. So we're going to move on. Oops. So going local, when we think about going local, we're really looking at those employer association, those chambers of commerce that are in your area, connecting with those businesses, connecting with those business associations. And we're going to talk specifically about a few of them on the next slide. We'll go into looking at the chambers of commerce and what they may have to offer, human resource management groups, and using the Bureau of Labor Statistics to really look at some of those trends and projections and what's happening in your local area. So many of these local associations offer monthly networking events that are really designed for you and others in the community to learn about what businesses are in the area, particularly now. It's an important association or important connections to make. Things are rapidly changing in the industry and in the employment sector. So being part of that employment community is really helpful. These events that they have. So for example, I belong to the South Jersey, I'm in New Jersey, the Southern New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, and attend many of their local events. One recent event that a colleague attended focused on some of the current mandates that are going on with industry and businesses, and it was a chance to not only network with employers but hear some important information. They also have information related to accommodations or other types of kind of business related topics that you may find useful. But in addition to the utility of the topic, networking and identifying employers in your community. Years ago, when I was providing direct services, we had a very small local chamber of commerce that I would attend, and we would go, they had a monthly breakfast meeting, and you would go and you would wear your name tag, and it was just a phenomenal way to build those relationships. And if you were at the marketing session last week, we talked about marketing budget. And some of that marketing budget, if your agency is willing to provide some marketing funds for your supported employment or vocational services, using that to have a membership with your local chamber or a membership with another business association, Rotary, or whatever makes most sense in your local area. Your company may already have one of those memberships. But the key is for the business to see you as part of their business community. They're seeing you as this, like many of you mentioned, trustworthy, this professional organization / staffing service to really help them. So use your chat and think about what are some ways in your community to build relationships. Maybe we even want to do a quick breakout room to really, I think this is so important because these personal relationships, this personal opportunity to network is really critical when you're trying to develop but also maintain those relationships. So let's do a quick breakout room and just spend some time, and Kadi and I will pop in and out of the rooms, but spend maybe 5 minutes. And I want you and your group in the breakout room to come up with at least 3 ways that you can build relationships with local employers in your community. All 3, just what some of the areas were that you mentioned. Mike, what were some things in your group that you mentioned? You were in group 3?
Yeah, I believe it was 3.
Yeah.
Teresa mentioned going to community events like farmers markets and just kind of, glad handing, kind of just going around and talking to people about their businesses and what you do and how you might be able to help them. We reiterated your point about the chambers of commerce, because I'd been to some uninvited where you just kind of go in and sit down, and if sometimes at the end there's a new business, anybody want to say something, you just kind of chime up and take the floor for as long as they'll let you. Or you can kind of distribute your card and kind of just talk to people on the side streets. What was the other? Teresa had said something about we were talking about this right when the thing ended, about just kind of going to businesses. I don't want to mistake.
Being a patron, if you're going to go for lunch, don't go to Wawa, go there. And, after a while you get to know them and, hey, I see you have a job opening, or you're looking for any help. Once they're comfortable with you, you can do things like that.
Yes. Yep. Love those ideas. Love the idea of kind of farmers market, other local events, and Mike, you emphasize, what can you do for them? What can your service, how can you support that employer? Absolutely. Doreen, you have your hand raised. Oh, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I just want to mention something really quickly. We talked about job carving, and I just want to mention to the audience that I feel like it's really important to not only think about your entire organization, your entire team in your vocational department, to always be on the lookout for different things. But I think what people forget very often is to connect with parents and relatives and friends of the people that we're serving. So when, I did intakes for many years, and I would sit down and I'd have the parents and the participant. And so what do you do and where do you work? And I would connect with those parents. And very often through the years, those parents came to rely on me and trust me. And one parent would help me get a job for another person's child. They were not children, they were in their 20s. But, it really takes a village. And I think just spreading that word far and wide, and not feeling that it's all on you.
Yes.
Really not, feeling that, you really have a team. That's really one thing that I think is so important.
Yes, Mike.
No, it's funny that she said that, because I think in the meeting before last, when I was talking about trying to go to we did go actually to the Chamber of Commerce. It was really under the auspices, we're trying to put together an organization, exactly what you just talked about, Doreen. It's tentatively called the Parent and Business Network.
Yeah.
We meet like once a month, and because we thought we'd start with parents of clients we already have. Some are working and some are not, and say, hey, do you have a business? Do you hire? Do you have a friend who does? So it's fledgling. That's what we're trying to build, that, because we figure if we could do exactly what you're saying, Doreen, is bring in employers and employees in the same place. It's really
right.
A lot of businesses want to hire people, but
exactly.
They don't know where to go.
Organizing that business resource group. And I think the main thing with that is if you meet consistently, if it's not every month, even if it's every other month, and then giving people in the group an assignment and saying, please, you know what, let's try to all come back with 2 businesses that are willing to just hear what we have to say. But I think if we offer services to them also, so I'm business relations with Access VR in New York, and I give presentations on services for young people who have disabilities and the community at large, and also our services to business. So it's a lot about what's in it for me. So businesses would like to hear about, resources to help them. But on the same token, you also want to give resources to parents and families, and they're also very appreciative. So you have a
That's
lot of
wonderful.
people in the audience.
Yes, that is a great, I'm glad you mentioned the families. Also, don't forget your board of directors in your agency, your other team members who are in other departments. I mean,
Yeah.
like Doreen said, it takes a village.
And you know what?
Pamela-
One last thing I want to
Okay.
mention too. Don't forget your vendors that you
Yes.
buy paper goods from and you buy
Yes.
supplies from. And
Your
you know
water,
what?
yeah.
They have a lot at stake because you're using their business. You're buying services from them. So
Yeah.
that was my list.
It looks like we have Pamela with her hand up and also Sean. So Pamela?
Oh, no, I was just going to piggyback off of what Doreen was saying. It does take a village, and what I pride myself on and my group that I work with, our husbands will text us and call us and tell us about jobs that they find as they're traveling.
Love it.
And it is so unique.
Love that.
And so we're in a business, we're in a meeting. We have a meeting every week, and our phone go off, and then your supervisor look at you, and I'm reading my phone where my husband's saying such and such, such and such is hiring.
Yes,
It seems like,
yes.
oh, this is just great, So
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
it's awesome when you have everyone in your church family. There is like no one. I mean, even when I go out of town, which is really sad, the first thing I said, oh, they're hiring, and my husband said, you're not in Georgia.
That's a great
You know what?
point.
That's the first time that I've ever heard get the husbands involved. First time I've ever heard.
Oh
that.
no, your husbands? Are you kidding? My kids, my nieces, my nephews, the whole family, they know what I do. And I even have a niece who called one day and said, I'm tired of my job. Help me find a job. No problem. Tell me what you're looking for. If I come across some, I'll let you know. So
Yeah.
everyone, no one is anyone can help.
Absolutely.
And it's really rewarding. It's so rewarding to know that you've helped someone and you can help someone. And even my clients, because I work for mental health individuals. And so they'll be like, Miss Pam, guess who's hiring, And so they even try and help me find other people jobs. So it's, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yes, sending that message. Sean?
Well, so I mean, I agree with everyone else about community events and Chamber of Commerce and talking to people and all that. But one of the things we're doing here is we're starting a social enterprise project through the MHA where I work and a local church here. And what it is it's going to be a dog biscuit company. But all of our participants are going to be the workers there. And they're also the ones who sell them. So what we're doing is taking these products, though, to all the local events, anything we can get into. And then we're inviting local business owners and managers and HR people from some of the bigger corporations in the area to come in and actually witness our participants as they work, while they're selling, while they're making, while they're doing all these things.
Wow.
So that instead of just hearing about them, they can actually see them in action, get to meet them. And then, so that way our participants can develop their own relationship
Yes, yes.
with these people. And then we can help just facilitate on the back end of getting things kind of organized for them, so that they can then go through our project and then get hired on, and then we're going to continue to support them for at least the first year of employment, working with their direct managers and HR and that to make sure that everything goes smoothly. But, I mean, it's one of those things. I come from the restaurant world. That's what I used to do pretty much my whole life. And anytime I went in for a job, I would fill out the piece of paper and then I'd look at him and say, let me cook you something. And then when they let me do that, I always got the job. It's better to see the person actually in motion, see what they can do, see how they can talk to people, see what kind of, what they bring to the table as a participant, not just what I can bring to the table through lip service.
Yes.
That's
great,
awesome.
great
How were you
suggestion.
able to get this project off the ground? This is so interesting that you were able to do that.
Well, so it's something that we've been talking about, the MHA and the churches, St. Luke's Episcopal Church here in Jamestown, New York. So we've been talking about it for a long time. There's a couple of us here at the MHA that go to church there. And we've been talking to the pastor there about it for some time. But then we were able to get a feasibility grant through ARC, the Appalachian Regional Commission, to basically do a study to try to get this up and running. Well, that and just job development, workforce development through our agency. But this really gave us the catapult to be able to put the social enterprise project, really get it going. I mean, it just gave us the money to get the certain things that we had to do to get it up and off the ground. One of the things we're doing with it is, so the participants are going to be doing all parts of making the product. But one of the things we're going to be doing is, so like the first half of the day is making them. Then while they're cooling, we're going to have classes for the participants. So, you know, how to write a resume, how to dress for work, how to do these different things. And then after the class, then they'll package them.
Sean,
So it's just,
this-
you know, putting all this together. And then, I mean, we kind of got the idea, if you've ever heard of Homeboy Ministries in California, that was started by a gentleman to help get people out of gangs. And it's a bakery. So same kind of concept. It's just, you know, to help the participants get away from, you know, the things that have been making their lives a little difficult, you know, throughout the
Sean,
years.
would you be willing, since we have a very brief amount of time left, would you be willing to share your email address, or if you wanted to share it with me, if others are interested?
Sure. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. I'll put my email in the chat and the website for the dog biscuit.
Yes, to follow up about.
Best of luck with
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sean, I
Thank you for
have some great
sharing.
advice for you. I'll email you. I have some
Okay.
great advice for you.
Yeah,
Awesome,
and
thank
use
you.
these opportunities, these types of webinars and trainings to connect with people and build your own network of supports. But
I just want to mention one last thing really quick.
Yes.
Just, I'm not sure who's aware of this or not, but the business relations representatives in any state, okay? So I happen to be in New York State, and Sean, I'll connect you with one in your area because we're all over the state. We can actually help connect companies to sponsor work tryouts for people. So if there's a business that meets with you, and I can tell you all about that. I'm going to put the link in the chat and go to business services, and you'll read all about it.
Perfect, thank you. And we'll include that with our, I'll pop it into the PowerPoint as well. Thank you. So some additional resources, you can look at these when you're back in your office, but again, Society for Human Resources, there may be a fee, but there may be options. Like I think someone had mentioned to go as a guest. I think Mike had mentioned kind of showing up as a guest, and that may be an option. But again, you're meeting with people who are HR directors of businesses, but also could be a really good resource for information. You know, what do employers look for? What are HR professionals looking for? What are those personality tests assessing? Like these are ways to kind of get information, both to build your network of possible employers, but also gain information to send back to job seekers. So it looks like I see some movement in the chat. So thank you to those who are putting those resources in. And if you have any other resources, Kathy and I will cut and paste those and pop them right onto our PowerPoint. But, you know, I'm not going to belabor this piece, but looking the part, making sure that when you are out there meeting with employers, you're kind of looking professional and carrying a notepad, or making sure that you have your marketing materials with you. And I know when I was out job developing in the past, we would kind of have almost a checklist of things that we would need. Make sure we brought resumes if we kind of already are at the point where we're negotiating for an interview for someone, making sure we brought business cards and so on. So just to sort of emphasize that we want to be professional. We mentioned this in the marketing and also the approaching employers sessions. That image is so important. So thinking about what image you want to convey, and some people on the webinar today might be veterans of providing services. Some people might be new. We can, would certainly love to hear from all of you to get that information about what types of image planning you do. What's the message you want to communicate? You could use the chat or just raise your hand and you can unmute your mic. What are those keywords associated with the message? What are the symbols or images that you want to use, or what images or symbols do you want to avoid using? So think about being part of the employer network, being part of the business community in your area. What's the message that you want to communicate to those businesses? So again, you can use the chat, unmute your mic. I'm seeing in the chat, thank you, Doreen and Sean. So what message do you want to communicate? Think about if you were at the marketing session last week. We want to communicate, I think Sean mentioned it, or might have been Mike, how we can support an employer, right? So we want to communicate that we are professional, that we are deserving of the employer's trust, that we have an important service that we provide. And that service is often connecting skilled, interested job seekers to employers that have a need. So that's kind of that message we want to be communicating. What are some keywords associated with that message? Keywords might be ongoing support, ongoing employee assistance. Keyword might be connection. A keyword might be collaborate. A keyword might be, what's another keyword? Let's see. Yes, Crystal, professional, absolutely, supportive, skilled, ongoing communication. These are keywords. Community. Yes, Sean, that's exactly, I did some work in New York City in some smaller areas of the city. And one of the big areas that they focused on when they did job development is we're all part of this community. Let's as a community thrive. I have, a service that I could provide to you. So yes, that community. What are some images and symbols that you would use? Let's say you were thinking of a business card or a marketing brochure or any other materials or your email signature, whatever that is. What are some symbols or email or images you would want to use? And this is particularly helpful exercise if you are just starting out. Handshaking, a person working. Yes, we want to stay away from more, depictions of charity, open hands or anything that kind of depicts that this is a human service or disability focused service. You want to really focus on that professionalism. Absolutely. What are images you want to avoid using in addition to kind of like the open hands or other images that suggest disability? What might those images or symbols be? Kind of mentioned that one, but think through. And you also want to think about business names, making sure if you're able to have a doing business as, yes, Doreen, you want to avoid any religious or political images or symbols. Yes, disability related symbols. Thinking about business names too. Many of you are working in organizations that have the name Mental Health Association or Behavioral Health Care Organization. So if you're able to talk with your administration and have a doing business as type name, or talk with your administrators about how you might have a separate sort of name or image for your own employment services. For example, I'm in New Jersey and we had, I worked at a community mental health center. It was literally called the Community Mental Health Center for Gloucester County. We had our own business name called Job Finders. And that was something that we talked to the administrators about and got approval. And you kind of have to go through some steps to do a doing business as type names. But yes, Doreen, UCP's VOC program in your area is called Employment Connection, which is great. Yeah, so you're kind of you're not, doing anything unethical or illegal, or, if you follow all of the proper protocol to get that, but you're again, sending a message that's more accurate. You're not there for charitable reasons. You're there to help the employer. And many of the people that you're working with have the skills, have the interest, have the values to match those needs of an employer. So this is a team activity. If you wanted to do this on your own, spend that time. This idea of being active, using, I think many of you mentioned kind of volunteering your time or showing up at community events, being active in the community to really, again, be part of that business fabric, be part of what's going on employment-wise, any way that employers and businesses could see you as contributing and part of their network is important. So this idea of being active, whatever that might look like, farmers market, volunteering for a walk, volunteering to be part of, maybe the Chamber of Commerce has a subcommittee, disability, equity and inclusion subcommittee, or something else that would be relevant and that you could really contribute to. Making that, doing your research. So this idea of doing your research, I added some web addresses after the slide, but looking at projections, looking at trends. I'll show you some of the websites that you can do that, but even just locally, keeping up with what businesses are coming into your area, what companies are leaving, what employers are expanding. Let's see here in the chat. Doreen mentions, I don't pay to be part of our local industrial association, but you volunteer at any event they need me and connect with many businesses. Yes, so, if you're not paying for those business associations, but you can volunteer and work at the events, again, you're meeting those people. So these are just some information, since we all are working in different states on this webinar today. I kind of added some more national websites, but you can click in and get to the more state specific. But I do want to go into this Career One-Stop Center, which has a lot of information, and I wanted to just show everyone kind of how to use it a little bit. But Career One Stop has lots of information for career exploration, training, and what jobs. So again, this is helpful for you to use with job seekers that you're working with who are, in the process of identifying different careers. So you can go into job search, and there's a whole section on networking and what that is. You can identify jobs across the US, and just, again, helps you in that planning process. There's also, Katya, are you able to see my screen with the website?
Yes.
So what do you see?
I see the explore careers.
Okay, yes. So in the US, what do you think the fastest growing occupation in the US is? And again, we can distill this down to our own specific state or region. So just type in the chat, what do you think the fastest growing occupation in the United States is? I was a little shocked at this. So since we don't have that much time, I'll show you. It's motion picture projectionist. Let's see. Warehouse, Teresa mentioned. And you can go through and see fastest growing occupations. It goes by rank, types of education required. And this is in the US specifically, kind of outlines our US fastest growing occupations, but you can go in and you can search by region. So I'm in New Jersey. I'm going to just type in here on the left, New Jersey, and it'll tell me what the fastest growing occupations are in New Jersey. And then you can even bring that even closer to home. So many of the top 10 are related to healthcare, which makes sense in New Jersey. There's some gaming and sportsbook writers and runners, which is probably more unique to New Jersey than maybe some of the other areas. But again, just gives you some way to begin looking to see in your area, what are some of those trends? What are some of those projections? What's coming into your town? So we really want to make sure, and I think this has been emphasized over the last few sessions, but we're really wanting to make sure we're targeting employers, and this helps us to be more mindful of the time we're spending if we're really targeting employers that meet the job goals and interests of job seekers we're working with. So these are just some areas to pay attention to, looking at the job seeker and the employer and helping to make sure that you're matching the two. And the employer part doesn't just focus on the tasks or the requirements of the job, but also what the culture is. And I've added a resource slide here to help you look at what some areas of work culture are. Using social media. So how many people have a social media account specific to your employment services? Sean, you do? Let's see. So yeah, raise your hand or write in the chat if you do. Sean, what does your social media account for your service look like compared to maybe your personal social media accounts?
Well, that's the one that we just recently set up for the Dog Biscuit Project. Called Father Bernard's. So for Father Bernard's, we just started that up. And so it's a Facebook page, Instagram. We're going to be starting up probably a Twitter page as well. And it can all be followed up of the website, but also too, we put the links on the bags. So, and at the table that we have, there's the little codes that you can just scan with your phone and get connected right to it too. So just a quick way to kind of get those things out there and moving, and you know what I mean? And then that's just such a cheap, easy way to promote things, you know? Promote
things, and also, again, have that employer see you as this professional, relevant source of information and a service to them. And particularly if you're able to kind of go under a different name and have it be a very, you know, professional, business-like sounding, like the one that you're mentioning is not your personal one, but it's not mental health association, you know, probably has that, may have that somewhere or may not. Yeah, you want to make sure that what you're putting online is something that can be updated. So making sure that it's not just sitting there with no updates, or make sure that people are available to sort of monitor your pages, so that it's not just sort of, you know, sitting there with no activity. But you can follow companies. I don't know if you're familiar, but just kind of laid it out here. When you sign in, you can type a company name in the search field, and I'll just show it really quickly. Mine, you can type in, so Virtua Health is a company close here by me. I can click on Virtua Health, and then I can choose to follow them. So now I'm following Virtua Health. Now I'm getting kind of information on my feed, information about job openings, job fairs. Virtua Health is a large, kind of very all-encompassing healthcare entity here in our area. So they do a lot of walks and a lot of other types of events. So I'm hearing that, and I'm seeing that. I can see who the employees are. So just a really helpful way when you start following companies, even if you're doing it on your own page, if that's all you have right now, and you don't have your company webpage to do it from, using your own and just following those companies as I think Patricia, someone had mentioned, always being on the lookout, always being kind of mindful of what's going on in the community, getting husbands and children and other spouses and partners involved. Twitter, and this resource here below is kind of a really quick read, but a nice resource about how to use Twitter in your job search, and we can kind of translate that to our job development efforts. Other ways, I think you're all kind of coming up with some of those unique strategies, but blogging, what's an area of expertise that you might have or people on your team might have? How might you blog about these areas? You can comment on others, creating a website like Sean is already doing. And this, I just wanted to, we talked about this in our earlier first session about introducing ourselves and using that elevator speech, but having a goal for each interaction is also very helpful. It helps you, again, fine tune and hone in on exactly what that interaction with the employer is going to be. And these are just 5 areas. I mean, there might be others, but that introducing yourself, and I just added these questions here. We don't really have time today to go through these questions, but getting a better understanding of what the employer's needs are. These are some typical questions that could kind of generate some of that. Assessing work culture. Is it to arrange the interview? So making sure what you have prepared and planned follows along with each interaction and following up with the employer. I added some resource slides here just because I knew we wouldn't have the time, but I also wanted you to have these resources, just a review of our elevator speech, different areas to look for when you're looking at work culture, following up with the employer immediately after, or after you follow up with the job seeker, get a sense of what that interaction was like and follow up with the employer. So for the learning application, we kind of spent that time in our breakout rooms already, but it would be great if you have a chance. You can even jot it down in the chat or take that time to think about it. Yes, somebody's mentioning, can we get a copy of the slides? Absolutely. Kati will be sending those out, but think about 3 strategies that you can incorporate over the next couple of weeks or the next month. Try to keep it a short time frame to develop or maintain relationships with employers. And in addition to that, identify the supports and resources that you will need. You might need to have a discussion with your supervisor. You might need to have business cards updated, whatever that is, but think about those strategies and how you can incorporate what we talked about today, or even some that you have on your own over the next couple of weeks. So in summary, we kind of went over a lot of so much great information from you all about resources and other strategies that weren't mentioned that Kati and I will put in and plug into our PowerPoint so that we can send everything off. Talked about developing and also maintaining those relationships using many of those already in place business associations, industry associations, looking at trends, looking at projections. So we are at the top of the hour, and next, just some references, resources, again, ways to follow companies on LinkedIn, introducing yourself to employers, a resource we developed, some other networking and business information resources that could be helpful. And finally, we come to our question and answer. So anybody have specific questions that we can answer now, or by all means, you can send me an email if you have questions that you think of after today. We kind of chatted along, so.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment that the trainings have been great and really good information. And just my one little, piece of advice is just to, not be complacent, really just keep that keep that communication going, even if it's once a month or once
Yes,
every other month.
yes.
A quick email, a phone call is even better. It's nice to hear someone's voice. How's it going? Just want to say hi. Not
Yes,
always
yep.
asking them for something. Just
Yep.
checking a call and see if just say hi, see how things are going. If you placed someone with them, how are things going with this person? They might say, oh, they're doing great. Or if they're struggling, it's good that you called. So
Yes,
you can
yep.
help resolve the issue or whatever. It just shows that you care.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's a great point to emphasize, Doreen. Any way that you can go back and meet with an employer, like you said, not for a reason, but just to continue to
Yeah.
develop that relationship, even end of the year cards, holiday.
Right. I put that in the
emails on
chat. That
ways
was
to-
great
yeah,
advice. Because
yeah.
I never do that. I'll send an
Yes.
email at the end of the year, but I think a card is just a little nicer. It's like,
We used to do that, and it was
Yeah.
fun for our team to even kind of get together and do that. So any of those kinds of ways to just keep your name out there in a professional light with the employer. I think Katya also put in the chat the evaluation information. You can also use this QR code to fill out a brief survey. And if you have suggestions for future topics in this area, please let us know that as well.
Thank you, Joni. So again, I want to thank everyone for being with us today. And, we really appreciate all of the feedback that you shared in the chat, as well as, that you shared by unmuting your mic and actively participating with us. We understand that these topics sometimes are very seldomly offered. And when they are, we see that there's so much participation. So we really appreciate your participation with us this morning. Thank you again, Joni, for leading us through this webinar. Just as a reminder, I will email everyone a link to the survey, as well as everyone will receive a certificate of completion and a link to the Zoom webinar and presenter slides. So this recording will be posted on our website within a week from now. So, if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to email myself or Joni. I'll also share my email in the chat box. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. We hope that you also, stay safe and well. And we hope that you also have a wonderful holiday season.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
happy holidays.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.